Hello and welcome to this video, and this is the second part of my voyage through my favourite instrumental tracks, and by instrumental I mean tunes that have got no singing on. It's quite simple. This is music for music's sakes. Nobody bloody putting their horrible lyrics all over it and expressing themselves and taking the focus away from the musicians. This is where we can stick the headphones on and really enjoy music in its purest form without bloody singers, spoiling it all. You know, I'm a drummer. I've experienced many a singer. They're waltzing into the gig, carrying their microphone in. That means they're bringing their gear in, so they've done their job, and all that bit. And while you're sweaty and trying to set the drum kit down, they're at the front chatting everybody up, because the only person that anyone was looking at was the lead singer. And so I can get some sort of, vengeance of having to back up these narcissists for so long by doing my 20 favourite instrumentals. I've already done the 10. Now, 20 to 11 contained a lot of fluff, esoteric stuff, bits of classical, but all sorts of weird stuff. Here, we get down and dirty. We're going to now get into the jazz fusion, and we're going to get down into the drummers, because this is my list. And for a track to be really good, it's going to have amazing drumming on it. So this is some of the best drumming, some of the best soloing, and it's primarily jazz rock fusion now from 10 to 1. It does tell you something. And there's nothing more jazz rock fusion-y than Billy Cobham on his best album he ever made, Crosswinds. No, yeah, not Spectrum, right? This is an incredible album. And on side 2, it opens up with one of the funkiest tracks ever made, The Pleasant Pheasant. Billy Cobham's a funky man. There's no two ways about it. In the Mahavishnu, as he was sat behind doing all this sort of weird time signatures and cutting up the beat and doing all that thing and changing the face of rock, all the way through it, he was a funky man. I mean, look at him. That's a funky man. Can you see? Look at that hat. Those collars, that hat, that's the funk embodied in physical male form. So Billy Cobham is funky. And he came up playing in a group called Dreams, which was like a sort of Blood, Sweat and Tears type of big band. And he basically revamps it for this album and the following albums. The Pleasant Pheasant is so funky. It's recorded beautifully. Of all those albums, Spectrum, Total Eclipse, Shabazz, and this one, this is by far the most best produced of the albums. It sounds incredible. And we get 4 solos on this. Lee Pastora, who is playing congas, he has a little bit of a conga break, which is quite cool. It's just a breather in the music. But the first opening solo, again, is Michael Brecker. The track I had at number 11 was a Chick Corea track called Quartet No. 1 off the album 3 Quartets, and Brecker is mind-blowing on that. Here we've got a much younger Brecker, and his solo on Pleasant Pheasant, he just takes it apart and he does everything. You could tell a great soloist, because they'll play a phrase, and then when they play the next phrase, it's in a completely different world. Hendrix solo on All Along the Watchtower does this. Every time it gets to that new chapter, something else happens. Louis Armstrong was a pioneer of this. Brecker does it. This is what sorts the men out from the boys, right? Or even the gods out from the men. Brecker's solo is just incredible. I can sing it now. And then it's weird, a tonal lick. And then he comes up to the high register. And he goes, and you get all these like Coltrane, that polyrhythm there. It's just, you can see, sometimes it's mathematical, sometimes it's just notes, sometimes it's funk, sometimes it's the blues. So Brecker puts in one of the greatest saxophone solos, right? Then you have the congas, and then George Duke comes in, doesn't he? And he's got that Moog synth, hasn't he, on Pleasant Pheasant? And he goes, he knows not to take Brecker on. He just sits there because he's so cool. He does his solo, and then it drops, and Cobham does the greatest drum solo within a form ever. Greater than Asia, right? What do I mean by a solo in a form? This is where the tune's going on and you play through the form. And now this is a blues. So it's, I don't know if it's a 12-bar, but it's definitely a blues. And he plays through that. Cobham solo here, it's the greatest ever, right? I would put that, Asia by Steve Gadd, and then Brother to Brother with the late, great Mark Craney. I mean, people going on about Asia. Why don't they go on about Brother to Brother? I could have put that on here. That's one of mine, but it's got singing on, so I can't. Anyway, that's by the by. This is mind-blowing. The whole album's mind-blowing, but Pleasant Pheasant is so good that if you go searching around, you will find a special video I made where I showed my love for this tune by creating a dance for it. And I do the dance, and I'll never do it again because my dancing over such a funky tune excited too many people, basically. It was raw sexual energy embodied in the male form moving to music. So if you want to go and check that out, I warn you before you go. Especially if there's any ladies watching, which of course there isn't. Right, so what are we at now? So we're at, that was 10. At number 9, this is a surprise to me as well, because instrumental music doesn't mean composition, it just means there's no singing on it. And so, who's one of the greatest instrumentalists that's ever lived? It's John Coltrane. So I thought, what's your Coltrane tune? And, well, you know, so I'm sat there thinking, if I had to just have one Coltrane tune, what would it be? I mean, I love Alabama. That's incredible. I love Supreme. That's all amazing. I love that Giant Steps. I'm going through them all, and they're all different realms, different worlds. You know, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost off Meditations. That's pretty out there, but I absolutely love it. And then I thought, no, I would just want Coltrane. And it came down to the tune Chasing the Train, which is mind-blowing. But I think I'm going to go for Impressions, off the album Impressions. For me, this is the platonic Coltrane Quartet performance. On side 2 of this tune, recorded live at the Village Vanguard on November the 5th, 1961. I think around about the same time that they recorded Chasing the Train. Elvin Jones, Jimmy Garrison, McCoy Tyner, and John Coltrane. What else more can I say? It's based upon the same form as So What, so it's I think it's probably a D minor D Dorian mode for the first A section, and then an E flat Dorian mode for the second section. And in 1961, musicians are pushing towards freedom, and Coltrane has tried to do it by exploding the form through the 2-5-1. He's tried to take the 2-5-1 and explode it into 3 dimensions. So he's called the Coltrane matrix. It's like you're existing in 3 keys at the same time that are a major third across, forming like a triangle within a cycle of fifths. It's all very technical stuff. But what it does is he's playing cadences like in 3 directions across all 12 keys. And that creates the language. That's a new language he creates. Then he starts to go towards modality. And whilst playing in modes, but busting them open with this like 4-dimensional approach to improvisation, it then starts to shatter into sort of just waves of energy. And he's got the greatest jazz drummer that's ever lived, Elvin Jones, who was able to create something so energetic that Coltrane could draw upon. This mixture, this isn't just a good jazz group. Everybody is doing their bit to create this incredible energy source in music. Jimmy Garrison is playing it, it's like a heavy metal guitarist. It's like Tony Iommi on the bass, all power chords and strumming. And of course, then you've got the chordal harmony of McCoy Tyner. And when you start stacking fourths, again, when you stack fourths, you are going around the cycle of fifths, but in the opposite direction to the 2-5-1s. So you now have this harmony that's going round and round the 12 keys. So we're in D minor, and D minor starts to become a tonal center. So basically we're in D, but D is like the fundamental, and then the whole world is based off that. The whole of it is based upon like this. And you are siphoning in, you're joined in. And when you hear Coltrane solo, you will feel that it's almost like he goes up and to the left then he'll go down and to the right, and then he'll go up and a circle up here, and then down and a circle here, and then you get that there, and then you get that there, and then you get that there, and it's like he's building out from. It's basically, it's who we are as human beings. It's the sublime, because it represents us as the center of the universe, but us as a completely unimportant speck in space of time in the universe. It's those two things all embodied at once. He places himself in the center of the universe. What's interesting is when you look at Ornette Coleman and start to study what he was trying to do, there's an incredible Ornette Coleman documentary that was made in the 1980s, can't remember the title of it, and he says the same thing, that he didn't believe in up and down, he believed in out. Jazz musicians play out, right? And they often think that means playing outside the key, but what are you really playing out? You're actually moving from here and going out. Where are you going? You're going out to there, or you're going out to there. That's the only way I can explain it. I've tried my best to explain why I love Coltrane, and Impressions is just mind-blowing, absolutely incredible. And this is a fantastic album, really is. We got India on side one. We got Eric Dolphy on bass clarinet. He's mind-blowing on that. And then we've got two short tunes. I think they could well be studio tracks, Up Against the Wall, which is a very muscular sort of Coltrane quartet, and then After the Rain, one of his great compositions. An album that does not necessarily get mentioned in the same breath as Giant Steps or My Favourite Things or Love Supreme, but amazing nonetheless. So that was number 9. We are now on to number 8. We have a classical piece of music, and this is the highest piece on this list. This tune's, again, this is something really special, and it's quite weird for me, because normally because I'm such a novice when it comes to classical music, I begin, I love Firebird Suite and I love the planets, but this one's not. This is not what you'd expect. It's Bela Bartók, Violin Concerto number 1, and it's the opener, Andante Sostenuto. This is an early piece by a young Bartók. He hasn't found his feet. He's coming out of a sort of post-impressionist, Ravel, all those types of composers. And there's a beautiful romantic harmony in here. This violin concerto starts off and the violin starts to weave its way up. And it winds its way through these beautiful vistas of romantic harmony, but the harmony just keeps collapsing in on itself. And then it emerges and then it collapses in on itself. So he's pushing towards a tonalism on this. He's pushing towards that area. He's interested in, I think he was Hungarian, wasn't he, Bartók? So he was interested in Hungarian folk music, and the violin has that aspect of it. It's so incredible. Now, I bought this because when I was at art college, my mate used to sit and listen to the Concerto number 2, which was a little bit later. And I used to love that. So I went and bought it for Concerto number 2, and I took it home. I remember putting the headphones on. This is probably 40 years ago now, 1988. So I must have bought it around about the time it came out. That sounds about right, 88. That's when I was at art college. So not quite 37 years, whatever it is. I put the headphones on, and this took me to a place that classical music never takes me. Absolutely incredible. When you listen to Lark Ascending by Vaughan Williams, which is one of the great pieces of music, that has the immediacy of jazz. Vaughan Williams' desire to try and capture the fleeting larks, means that there's no real tune. That violin just weaves its way through the sky. This is like that, but it's something else that's weaving. It's not a lark, but it has that feeling of solo, of an improvisation, and that this violin is leading the way into all sorts of different vistas. That's all I've got to say on that. So that was number 8, wasn't it? So we're now at number 7. Another John McLaughlin one. Here it comes, off In a Mountain Flame. Right? I love the Mahavishnu, you know that. I love all their stuff. It's all amazing. This is an amazing album, incredible. Meeting in the Spirits, Noonwood Race, Awakening, You Know, and then the beautiful A Lotus and Irish Streams, incredibly exciting, vital transformation. But the Dance of Maya, or Dance of Maya, as I think is actually pronounced, That tune is more heavier, it's more darker, and it's more rooted in the blues. It's more rocking in a way than anything they ever did. It's got a sound which I know people who are fans of the Mahavishnu primarily because of the sound of Dance of Maya. It's so unbelievably heavy. Now, it informs the Mahavishnu, and John McLaughlin goes back to that sound in later Mahavishnu. That every single album following this has that moment of sort of that spinning, dark, arpeggiated heaviness. It's Birds of Fire on Birds of Fire. It's Trilogy on Between Nothingness and Eternity. It's Vision is a Naked Sword, the second track on Apocalypse. They all do this thing. It's very hard to discuss. And then once the Mahavishnu was over, John McLaughlin never went back there again. It's a certain sound. It's a heavy, dark sound, and I love it. So that's what I've got. Dance of Maya, that sort of dark, arpeggiated sound. At number 7, was it? So we're at number 6. Dance of Maya and the Mahavishnu in 1971. One of its biggest genres that influences, as well as the influence in jazz rock and heavy metal, is prog. A lot of progressive rock bands in the 70s were playing on the same bill as the Mahavishnu, and it's just a catalogue of bands just being blown away by this band. At this time, Robert Fripp is exploring this sort of quaint, very will-o'-the-wispy type of progressive rock with his band King Crimson. He's touched on it before the Mahavishnu with 21st Century Schizoid Man, but he's never gone back to that really. So we get a lot of flipping and flopping about, and I was never too keen on that. And I felt like Fripp knows this. So in 72, he knocks that version on the head and he reforms King Crimson with a band that really redefines what prog is and opens the door to progressive metal and a whole bunch of things. And on their first album, Larks, Tongues and Aspic, incredible artwork, look at that, absolutely brilliant. They start to explore this more darker sound, which I feel was influenced by Mahavishnu, especially Dance of Maya. And at the end of this album, we get Larks, Tongues and Aspic Part 2. I just love that. Absolutely incredible. So we are up to number 5. This is a strange album. I love Chick Corea. He's already been on the list already. And he's going to crop up again, this time even much higher. Imagine Chick Corea's making an album. Rather than doing a Weather Report album, he decides to make a sort of progressive rock jazz fusion album about pixies and fairy folk. It doesn't sound like the recipe for a great album. It could be a little bit twee, couldn't it? And it is. And it's this album, Leprechaun, which although it is twee, and look at the cover there, as Chick Corea, frolics with the woodland sprites and various fairy folk of wherever he's played his piano. But this is mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It's made mind-blowing by the lineup, which is basically, it's augmented by a whole bunch of people, but it's basically Chick Corea on keyboards, Anthony Jackson on bass, Steve Gadd on drums. It's that rhythm section. At the end of side 1, Steve Gadd goes into some of the most incredible drumming that was ever recorded by anybody ever. And that's on the track Night Sprites. He does everything that Steve Gadd does. It's just mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So that's what I'm putting in at number 5 is Night Sprite. But the whole album's incredible. What can I say about Night Sprite? There's a lot going on in this track. It's very funky. It flies. There's a lot of unison lines. It's quite complex in its arrangement. And Gadd doesn't seem to be encumbered by the arrangement. There's one bit where he does a drum solo and he's flying as a drum solo and they keep returning to this repeated figure which goes and they're soloing. That's right, they're soloing a circle. So you've got Joe Fowler, I imagine, it on the saxophone, and then they do that break, and then it's a keyboard, and then there's drums. There's all this stuff going on. It's just keyboards and saxophones all coming back to me, and then he does the drum solo. When that's happening, Gad's just flying. And that phrase just gets shorter and shorter, so they can never just return back and just bang out in amongst all this. They've got to think where they are in this until it shortens and shortens and shortens down to this point where they just have just like a couple of notes, and then Gad goes into this drum solo. And I know it off by heart. All of that. This is what makes music amazing. Yeah, you can solo and show off and do that type of stuff. But every now and then, great musicians do something that's so melodic, even a drum solo, where you remember it, you remember every single note of it. So that's, I feel now I have given Night Sprite justice, which is good. We're at number 4 now. I've gone back to this album. This is one of the greatest albums ever made. And it's made me reevaluate this album. It's Secrets by Allan Holdsworth. This is Holdsworth's best album. Stuff that's going on off this is just incredible. The big difference with this album, as great as Gary Husband is and Chad Wackerman, we've got Vinnie Colaiuta on drums, and Holdsworth and Vinnie is like a match made in heaven. In the end of the late 70s, for me, there are two drummers that renegotiate how you play high-powered jazz rock improvisation behind a guitarist or just in a loud band, basically. And those two drummers are Gary Husband and Vinnie Colaiuta. They access some sort of polyrhythmical approach that comes from Tony Williams and Melvin Jones, and they apply that to a technical way of playing the drums, which you could say is embodied with Steve Gadd. And they both seem to pull on that. Tony Williams is key to what they do. On Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, Vinnie, he redefines how a rhythm section works, as was a huge influence on me, as was Gary Husband's drumming on IOU. The opening track on here is a track called City Nights. It's very, very short. I think it's literally, I don't know if it's got the thing here, it's literally 3 minutes long. There's more music packed into that tune than in any other tune in the history of mankind. It's got perhaps the greatest drumming ever recorded. Vinnie is just on fire. Apparently he's sight reading through Gary Husband's composition, because this is a Gary Husband composition. And so there's something about this that makes it different to a lot of the Holdsworth compositions. We've also got some incredible compositions from Steve Hunt. One of the things that make this album great is everyone's chipping in with compositions, and it's remarkable to see or hear how Holdsworth makes each composition his own. You know, I'll be listening to it and think, Holdsworth's just so incredible on this. He must have written this so he could do this. And then you look and you realize Steve Hunt's playing it. And that's the case with City Nights. It sounds like Holdsworth owns it. Holdsworth does perhaps the greatest guitar solo. Vinnie does the greatest bit of drumming. Gary Husband's incredible composition is continually turning round the corner very quickly into another world. And it feels like, you know, the eyebrows change every 4 bars or something. It's like, it's like this. And then Holdsworth and Vinnie are just, they're as one. And Vinnie seems to have totally freed himself from time. Time exists, but for Vinnie, he is just, yeah, I know it's there, but I'm not playing it. I'm playing what Allan's making me feel. And Allan's taking that, and then he's just cascading the notes in a way that he did it on other albums, and not like this. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Whole album's incredible. By the time you get to the end of it, there's another track where he just blows, Pale Premonition. And this time we now have Chad Wackerman, who's written the tune, and he's playing the drums and keyboards on it. And you hear Chad's approach on drums, and you hear how it affects Allan. And it's very interesting to hear this great album. But I put City Nights. City Nights is like, it's the most intensely packed piece of music ever written, ever performed, that exists. Right, we're down to the last 3 now. At number 3, I have the greatest album ever made, Visions of the Emerald Beyond. And off this, we have Lila's Dance. that sound, that dark sound that's embodied in Dance of Maya that we mentioned earlier, is refined to its peak for me on Lila's Dance. Lila's Dance does the same trick. It starts off with this arpeggiated pattern in 5, just like Dance of Maya. That carries on in a certain way. And then they go to a second section, which is this slow blues, but it's in 20, so it skips. And then the third section is both of those themes placed upon top of each other. We sort of get a polyrhythmical and polyharmonic sort of world emerging out of those two. The first is very ethereal, it's very open and floaty, but heavy in the same way. And then the blues section is very bluesy and heavy. Jean-Luc Ponty's solo over the floaty first section is just some of the greatest electric violin playing. He's at one with the instrument, but he's also at one with the effects. He's like the Hendrix of violin, and the way he utilizes his violin that seems to go lower than anybody else's violin, and the delays and everything is just incredible. I think he's got a wah-wah pen. It's just unbelievable. And it doesn't sound like just somebody honking away trying to play the blues a little bit like the violin playing on Hot Rats, you know, I think, which I love. But Jean-Luc Ponty's doing something, it's incredible. And then John McLaughlin comes in on electric guitar and basically puts his greatest guitar solo down. A lot of my choices are about the improvisation. It's about the solo within the composition and having that unique thing. It's mind-blowing. So that's what I got at number 3. At number 2, I have off the album Oh Yeah by Jan Hammer, the opener, Magical Dog. All right. Jan Hammer is a presence, shall we say, at the top of this. Jan Hammer's vision of music, the way he plays grooves, the way he thinks the production in the studio, his keyboard sound, the way he plays keyboard, his interest in microtones and the bends, and more than just the blues, the way that he plays sort of Indian modal sounds, his vagueness about major and minor. You know, if he's playing in the minor, he makes it major, and if he's playing the major, he makes it minor. There's something about Jan Hammer's world vision for music which it is the most in line with my world vision for music. It's everything he does to me is absolutely perfect. On this album, which was the great fusion band that he had after the Mahavishnu, which featured Stephen Kindler on electric and acoustic violins, Fernando Saunders on bass, and Tony Smith on drums. They made a number of albums. They made this one, which is an out-and-out fusion album. They made Melodies, which is a collection of sort of pop songs, and it's as equal to this. And then they did the live album with Jeff Beck, and that's great. It's got Jeff Beck on. This is incredible. This is one of the greatest fusion albums ever made. I've got it at number 2, remember. And the track Magical Dog is perhaps the greatest burning full-out fusion track ever made. Yep, it's not Weather Report, it's not the Mahavishnu, it's not Herbie Hancock, it's none of those. It's Magical Dog. I know my fusion. I've gone through it all. The greatest jazz fusion instrumental that flies at these bonkers all-on-time signatures and all that type of thing is Magical Dog. It's only pipped to the post by one other, which we're going to have at number 1, which also features Jan Hammer. Magical Dog has almost like prog-like sections, classical stuff, you know, arpeggiated violin parts. It's got 2 incredible keyboard solos. The first, where Jan's inside the form, and he's just at the peak. He's mastered this moog through a guitar pedal approach, and he's just burning. At the end, it just drops down to drums and keyboards, and you get this sort of like Coltrane, Elvin Jones Coltrane duet thing. John McLaughlin used to do it with Billy Cobham. Here, Jan Hammer does it with Tony Smith. His playing is so precise. I think what I like about Jan Hammer the most, it's his rhythmic precision. His groove, his sense of note placement is how I want to play. It's what I love more than anybody else. Jan Hammer's my favourite instrumentalist, and I believe that he's the Charlie Parker of jazz rock fusion, because he supplies that new unique sound like Charlie Parker did. The phrasing, the note choice, everything, that mogy bent sound, which then every keyboard's going to copy forever and ever, that Jan Hammer invented. Jan Hammer's one of the most important musicians of the 20th century. Nobody understands it. And this is why he was able then to stop doing all this jazz rock fusion and then become a multi-millionaire, I imagine, by doing the soundtrack to Miami Vice, because his stuff is accessible. But this is one of the greatest pianists of the 20th century. This is a Keith Jarrett level, Herbie Hancock level pianist. Jan Hammer is the man. I've got him at number 2. Magical Dog is near the greatest instrumental of all time, but at number 1, we are now arrived at here as I get to the 30 minutes. See how good I am, right? As we get to the 30-minute point, I'm at number 1. And number 1 is the opening track of this album. You guessed it, there are Michael Walden, Jan Hammer, Jeff Beck, and I believe Wilbur Bascom on bass. I better just check that. Yeah, Wilbur Bascom on bass. And the great Max Middleton on clavinet on the Max Middleton composition. So I've just realised that my favourite instrumental track of all time is composed not by Zoe Zawinul or Frank Zappa or John McLaughlin, any of these people, not even Jan Hammer. It's Max Middleton, the great Max Middleton. This is my favourite track, Lead Boots. Why do I love it so much? Because everything in it is perfect. It's got the best drumming anybody ever recorded from Narada Michael Walden. It's so good that you can tell he kicks in and they're not ready for him. Who's ever produced this, George Martin, he sat there and he went, "Big record," and they hit record, and it opens up halfway through this drum introduction, which sounds like it completely impromptu, as Narada just comes in, just burning, and then he runs into the beginning with those big slash chords, and he plays his signature Narada between the crashes all around the kit. Then it drops into this hyper funky riff, which sounds like it's come from Black Dog by Led Zeppelin, but he's way better. There's the gap. Ventilated riff. All that's going on. And then Jan Hammer comes in, and apparently Narada Michael Walden told me directly, that those tracks were laid down in the studio. Jan wasn't there, and then Jan is overdubbing his keyboard solo. Right? So he doubles up Jeff Beck's guitar melody. Jeff Beck and Jan Hammer playing a dual melody together is about as good as it gets. Play that 4 times. And then Narada goes, and then they do the Black Dog bit. Boom, which I think is in 7, but Narada just plays through it. Boom, so boom, this is incredible stuff. When I heard that as a kid, I was like, what's going on? I was into Rush. And, and then suddenly Neil Peart sounded like he was playing with the broom stuck up his arse. When I heard him Narada playing that, the drum sound, the pure joy of it. And then Jeff Beck comes in and does this guitar solo. Now, I've got to be honest, this is peak Beck to me. In the 80s, he's amazing. Once he discovered the Strat with the whammy bar and he starts, it was all great. But I like him in the 70s when it's just his fingers and he's pulling out things on the guitar. I think, what the hell's this? What is going on there? I mean, Jeff Beck's one of the greatest. Such an expressive player. This guitar solo is incredible. It's all this. It's like, what are you doing? It's not like John McLaughlin or Larry Coryell. It's not that sort of Coltrane-esque play applied to a sort of a Hendrix thing. Jeff Beck's there. He's already doing it. He's got his own way of doing it, and it's incredible. Jeff Beck is. I mean, if I was doing the list of the greatest jazz rock guitarists, I probably wouldn't just put Jeff Beck on the list, but he just is. Right? And then they get to the outro, and they're burning at this point. And Jan Hammer comes up with his keyboard solo. And the feel between Narada Michael Walden and Jan Hammer, that feeling of that it's the way they play time. And I can't really explain it, but it's joyous. It's not intimidating. It's open. It's free. It's funky. It's just so incredible. Jan Hammer. I mean, if you go and check out the Tommy Bolin, I think is it off the album Teaser when they do Marching Powder, or is that off the Private Eyes one? I can't remember. Marching Powder again. It's another track where Narada plays with Jan Hammer. I wish there was a whole album. I wish they just gone into the studio and done a whole album of just Narada, Michael Walden and Jan Hammer. But of course, that would stop the universe from functioning correctly. You can't have that amount of funk and feel and soul in the world. It would just suck everybody in. And we'd be like a black hole. It would be a funky free black hole. And then when you got inside, there'd be a singularity of groove. You like it? Very poetic, isn't it? Right, I think I'm done. I'm at the end of my great big list. This is end of part 2. Thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you don't know these tracks, you can go and check it out if you don't know the albums. I've tried to put some lesser known stuff on the earlier, and I'll put some classics on the later bit. If you want to hear all these tracks, then go over to my Patreon and become a member there, and you'll be able to hear my radio show. Please subscribe to this. Also, I've got a PayPal tip jar. You can stick some money in there, or you can become a member of this channel. Thanks for watching this video. This is the bread and butter of this channel. This is what we're here to do, is to talk about this music we love. So I hope you enjoy that. And thanks for watching, because this is what we're here for. But I will be back tomorrow saying, you know, rock musicians with the biggest ears top 10. That's what I'll be doing tomorrow. And that will get them in. And I don't mind doing those. I can indulge my more humorous side. But this is what we're here for. We're here for this lot, aren't we? That's what it's really all about.